Welcome to English Tales for Learners. This is your space where stories don't just teach English, they ignite something deep inside. Today we bring you a story of quiet struggle, deep doubt, and unstoppable hope. Let the rain fall, let the world doubt, but don't stop. Mia didn't. English Tales for Learners. The rain tapped a steady rhythm against the window of the small apartment, a gray curtain draped over the city outside. Mia sat at her kitchen table, the surface cluttered with unpaid bills, a half-empty coffee mug, and a notebook filled with crossed-out ideas. Her laptop glowed faintly, the cursor blinking on a blank document, mocking her. She'd been sitting there for hours, days even, trying to write the story she'd promised herself she'd finish, the one she'd told everyone about. Her friends, her family, the co-workers who'd nodded politely but didn't really believe she'd do it. Hell, sometimes she didn't believe it herself. She'd carried this dream like a fragile flame through stormy years, shielding it from the winds of disappointment. As a child, she'd hide in the attic, devouring books that whispered of faraway adventures, her heart racing with every page turned. Those stories had been her sanctuary, a place where loneliness dissolved into magic, where she wasn't just a quiet girl in a noisy world. Now, at this cluttered table, that magic felt faded, worn thin by the relentless grind of adult life. She leaned back in her chair, rubbing her eyes. The weight of it all pressed against her chest. The job she hated, the rent that kept creeping up, the dreams that felt further away with every passing year. At 32, Mia felt like she was running out of time. She'd always imagined herself somewhere else by now, somewhere bigger, brighter. A published author, maybe. Or at least someone who didn't flinch at the sound of her own alarm clock. Instead, she was here, stuck, her ambition buried under a pile of doubts and what-ifs. The isolation of her days clawed at her, the silence broken only by the distant hum of traffic, a reminder of lives moving forward while hers stalled. Tears welled unbidden, hot and stinging, as she wondered if she'd ever escape this invisible prison of unmet potential. The memory of her father's voice crept in, uninvited. "You've got to keep going, kid," he'd said years ago, when she was still a teenager scribbling poems in the margins of her math homework. He'd been a mechanic, hands always stained with grease, but he'd believed in her, believed in the stories she spun. He'd sit with her under the old oak tree, his rough voice softening as he shared tales from his youth, igniting her imagination like a spark to dry tinder. Those moments were etched in her soul, his laughter a balm against the world's harsh edges, his faith a lighthouse in her storms. He'd died before she'd had the chance to prove him right, and that loss still ached. A quiet bruise she carried everywhere. The grief surged now, raw and unrelenting, a wave crashing over her, pulling her under with memories of his final days, his weakened smile, his whispered encouragement. She clutched the edge of the table, breathing through the pain, feeling the void he'd left like a hollow in her chest that no words could fill. But his words, they lingered, stubborn, refusing to let her give up. Mia stood, pacing the small kitchen, her socks whispering against the linoleum. She caught her reflection in the window. Tired eyes, messy bun, the same oversized sweater she'd worn for 3 days straight. She looked like someone who'd already lost, and that thought sparked something sharp and defiant in her gut. No, not yet. She wasn't done. The defiance rose like a tide, mixing with the ache, turning sorrow into fuel, a burning resolve that made her hands tremble. She paused, tracing her fingers over an old photo on the fridge. Her and her father, arms linked, grinning at a fairground, the world full of promise. That image stirred a storm of emotions. Love, regret, a fierce longing to honor him, to make his belief in her mean something eternal. Tears blurred her vision, but they were cleansing now, washing away the numbness, awakening the part of her that had slumbered too long. She sat back down, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The blank page stared back, but this time, she didn't let it win. She typed a single sentence, clumsy and imperfect. The girl stood at the edge of the world, unsure if she should jump. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Her lips curved into a small, determined smile. She kept typing, the words spilling out slowly at first, then faster, like a stream breaking through a dam. They weren't perfect, but they were hers. And that was enough for now. Each sentence carried fragments of her pain, her joy, her father's enduring spirit woven into the fabric of the narrative. The girl in the story became a vessel for Mia's unspoken fears, her hidden strengths, a mirror reflecting the battles she fought in silence. The rain kept falling, but Mia barely noticed. She thought of her father, of the way he'd grin when she'd read him her stories, of the way he'd tell her she could do anything if she just kept at it. His grin flashed in her mind, warm and crooked, a beacon that pierced the gloom, reminding her of picnics where he'd act out her tales with exaggerated gestures. Those memories flooded her, bittersweet, filling her with a profound gratitude that tightened her throat, urging her fingers onward. She thought of the nights she'd stayed up late in college, hammering out essays while her roommates partied, driven by a fire she wasn't sure she still had. But maybe it wasn't gone, just buried, waiting for her to dig it out. She recalled the all-nighters, the caffeine-fueled marathons where doubt whispered in her ear. But passion roared louder, a fire that had once consumed her entirely. Now, as words flowed, that fire rekindled, warming her from within, chasing away the chill of years lost to hesitation and fear. Hours passed and the page filled. The story took shape. A girl, a journey, a fight against odds that felt too big. Mia saw herself in those words, in the girl who kept moving forward even when the path was unclear. She wrote until her fingers ached, until the coffee was cold and the rain had stopped, leaving only the soft drip of water from the eaves. The girl's struggles echoed Mia's own, losses that scarred, dreams that faltered, yet a persistent hope that refused to die. Drawing tears as she typed, she poured her soul into the prose, each paragraph a catharsis, releasing the pent-up emotions that had weighed her down for so long. The narrative twisted with raw vulnerability. The girl's tears in the night, her whispers to lost loved ones, her defiant stand against despair. Mia's heart raced, the story becoming a lifeline, pulling her from the abyss, filling her with a surging wave of empowerment. When she finally leaned back, the clock read 2 a.m. Her eyes burned, but her chest felt lighter, like she'd shed something heavy. The story wasn't finished, not even close, but it was alive. And so was she. A profound sense of renewal washed over her, mingled with lingering sorrow, creating a tapestry of emotions that made her feel truly human, truly alive. She thought about the days ahead, the early mornings at her dead-end job, the bills that wouldn't pay themselves, the moments of doubt that would creep in like unwelcome guests. But she also thought about the words she'd write tomorrow, and the day after that. She envisioned a future where her story touched hearts, where readers wept and cheered, finding echoes of their own battles in her pages. The thought brought fresh tears, not of sadness, but of overwhelming hope, a vision so vivid it made her pulse quicken with anticipation. She thought about the people who'd read her story one day, who'd see pieces of themselves in it, who'd know they weren't alone. Mia closed her laptop, the soft click echoing in the quiet apartment. She stood and stretched, her reflection in the window looking different now. Stronger, maybe, or at least ready to try. The world outside was still gray, still heavy with the weight of everything she couldn't control. But inside, something had shifted. She wasn't running out of time. She was just getting started. She lingered at the window, watching the city stir faintly in the night, imagining her father watching over her, his pride swelling like the dawn. The emotions swelled, a deep, aching joy that made her whisper thanks to the stars, to him, for never truly leaving her side. She whispered to herself, to her father, to the girl in her story, "Keep going." And as she crawled into bed, the words settled into her bones. A promise she'd carry into tomorrow. The fire was still there, flickering but fierce, and she'd fan it into a blaze. One word, one day, one stubborn step at a time. She lay there, eyes closed, feeling the rhythm of her heartbeat sync with the story's pulse, a symphony of resilience that lulled her to sleep. Dreams came, vivid and tender. Her father's hand on her shoulder, the girl in the story soaring free, and Mia, Finally, whole.